I'm Craig Hatkoff, and I'm a CGO.
All we're saying, guitars are playing a part of who we are. Got a cool job, but there's so much more to the chairmen and women of the pedal board. You're a CGO, Chief Guitar Officer.
The show where success meets guitar.
Welcome to Chief Guitar Officer. I'm Scott Haidt.
And I'm Judd Silver. Scott, I got one for you. What do Galileo, Keith Richards, and today's guest have in common?
Well, I know at least two of them are well known for trashing hotel rooms.
Possibly. But all three are well known for being disruptive innovators.
Early in his career, our guest this week developed creative ways for banks to expand their business.
He went on to co-found with Robert DeNiro and Jane Rosenthal the Tribeca Film Festival. He is a successful children's book author, and he created the Disruptor Awards. Throughout all of this, the guitar obviously being a very important part of his life. Scott, tell us who our guest is.
We are really excited to welcome Craig Hatkoff. And guess what? He's a CGO.
Disruptive Innovator. #1 best-selling children's book author. Co-founder of the Tribeca Film Festival. CGO, Craig Hatkoff. Welcome to Chief Guitar Officer.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Where are you right now?
I am over at now 35th and the East River.
New York City.
New York City. I've been here straight through the mid-70s.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us about a current project you're working on right now.
Well, I had a project that ties in sort of my entire life. I happen to have written with some help from some few musicians you may know the names of at some point, a rock opera based on the life of Galileo.
Really?
Wow.
The project really started in a funny way, having started playing guitar when I was 12 years old. Let's see, that would have been sort of scary. Mid to late 60s, let's just put it that way. Inspired by basically the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. Those were the two. Yep. And everybody else was fine, and I loved it all. And, the classics like Louie Louie. But I decided I was going to take guitar lessons. I've been playing since I was 12. And I said, you know what? I grew up in Albany, New York. There wasn't an internet. I don't even think they sold guitar magazines. So you've learned, what little you could from your bandmates and other people in bands. That's how you learn the music business. And I decided to take guitar lessons and found that actually I got recommended to a producer and actually very accomplished studio musician, Alan Schwartz, who was recommended by Rudy's Music. And
Rudy Pensa.
Rudy Pensa. Yes, exactly.
Of course.
And so I went to my first lesson and I knocked on the door. I walk in and Alan says to me, okay, I want you to write down your 10 favorite songs and then I want you to play your favorite song and let's see how you play it. So the one song I had always tried to figure out and couldn't get it was Honky Tonk Woman. And so I take it out and I play my kind of pidgin English version on guitar. And Alan just shakes his hand. He goes, don't you know, man? He's playing an open G. I said, open G? What's open G? I know open E. I know drop D. What the hell's open G? So he takes my guitar and he does a few little changes. And then he says, you know what Keith Richards does? He snips off the low E string.
Yep.
He's only playing on 5 strings. And this was the epiphany of all epiphanies.
Right.
So he hands it back to he plays it, and it's like, oh my God, that's like, the Red Sea had parted. He's a really good guitarist. And ever since that day, for the next, I'd say from 1990 to 2005-ish, I only played guitar in open G.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a whole new experience.
Yeah.
Along the way, on the side, I had this project that was really a family hobby with my daughters. Mm-hmm. I was going to write. I became obsessed with the story of Galileo. And I just thought maybe each time I heard an interesting part, let me see if we can turn it into a little bit of a song. And here's a, first chorus bridge was so far beyond what I was even thinking. And it evolved into an entire project that was writing songs that had no particular goal in mind other than while I was not, first of all, I'm lefty and I play guitar righty.
Oh, interesting.
That tells you already the left and right side of the brain are not in sync. It doesn't matter what I can't keep time at a professional level, just, inherently bad. So I could never perform, not even a prayer of me performing. But I seem to have a little bit of a knack for composition, harmony, melodies. And Alan, after the first song or two I wrote, Alan said, let me get somebody in here who could sing the lyrics. And he's really talented. Did you ever hear of Joe Lynn Turner? I said,
Wow.
Not really. He said, well, you must know Deep Purple. I said, I know Deep Purple because you must know Rainbow.
And
I said, yeah, sounds good to me. Now, I was a little traumatized by one of my sessions. Alan brought in a professional bass player to play the bass line. And it was just the worst experience I had. And so I said, I may have to hang this whole thing up. I can't do this. So Alan brings in Joe Lynn. And as Alan said to me, he said, Joe Lynn he can sing the Telephone Book, man. Don't worry about it. And we started off, actually, the first one we did was a recording of a lullaby for my daughter. And I was so blown away how Joe, as a professional musician, he calls himself the song doctor. So he looks at a song and in 5 minutes, he does the arrangements, we work on the harmonies. And then after that one session, for the next 10 years, we wrote basically a 23-song rock opera. And, it was the three of us and started off in Alan's home recording studio. So the transformation to open G tuning, literally for half of the rock opera, the 23 songs, was composed in open G. You look at that Telecaster in the background.
Perfect tool for that.
It's a 55 Tele, and the low E string is snipped off.
Tribute to Keith.
And so, this is for Keith. This is the whole thing. Keith has a great quote from his. Actually, I don't think it's in the book, but the great quote is open G tuning. It's 5 strings, 3 notes, 2 fingers, and 1 asshole.
Yeah.
That sums it up perfectly.
Going back to the Galileo project, is that finished? Is it in the works? Is it something that you're still progressively working on?
So we did one showcase performance put together in 1 week. Alan and Joe kind of put together a band, and we did it as a fundraiser. Now, I decided, guys, I can't play in public. Like, it's my private passion. And so we put on one performance at a place called the Asia Society in 2003. And the funny part of it, and it went over very, very well. It's sort of, think of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Mm-hmm.
It's story driven and it tells the whole thing. And it's really the counter narrative. Mm-hmm. Galileo was a rogue. He was a womanizer. He, enjoyed a nice bottle or 5 of wine. But he was an amazing scientist. And obviously, without going too much into detail, he had a little bit of a conflict with the Pope at the time, Pope Urban. And so the whole rock opera is from the church's perspective.
Oh, really?
How do you manage the world's first rock star?
Oh, wow. So cool.
So the whole notion, if you recall, how many articles and how many bands have trashed hotel rooms? Think of that model of Galileo.
The originator.
And he was the world's most famous person, largely because he was a badass.
Right.
So it's kind of, I moved him from being just straight hero to an anti-hero.
Okay. So this is going to come out into a theatrical performance?
So
that's the idea?
2003.
Okay.
The audience at the one performance we did is someone who I didn't really know. He was a friend of a friend who called me the next day. Can I come and see you? And I said, okay. He says, I want to suggest something to you. As it turns out, he works very closely with the Vatican.
Okay.
The woman who used to do I don't know, they're still doing it. So Pope John Paul II was the Pope then. And if you recall, he hung out with Bono, he wore sunglasses, he was the cool Pope. So the fellow came, his name is Giorgio, he said, I work with the woman who produces the Christmas show for basically the Pope. Would you ever consider bringing this to the Vatican?
Oh, wow.
And at first I thought, is this a joke? Am I on candid camera? And long story short, I ended up spending 2 years going back and forth to Rome with a whole cast of characters from when I use the word the Vatican isn't a monolithic entity. It's sort of fiefdoms all over the place. There's a woman whose name you probably have heard, Lisa Robinson, rock journalist.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
She became like my personal advisor on all things. She came to listen to the music for the rock opera and really thought it was very commercial. And Lisa is completely unfiltered. So, if she said, listen, I'm going to tell you the honest truth. If you're a dentist from somewhere in New Jersey and you just do this on the weekend, I'm going to say, stick with your hobby. Right. And she really liked it. And the funny part is she ended up coming to Rome with us to meet with some of the people. And sadly, what really derailed it was Pope John Paul II in the middle of us getting ready to launch this. As we said, we had a change in management at the Vatican.
Okay.
He died. New Pope comes in. Pope Benedict was not at all into rock and roll, wasn't even into classical music. He liked church music. So it kind of went, dormant.
You lost your A&R guy.
Yeah, my A&R was exactly. So it sort of never ended, and it's still going. And now it has another life with a new Pope that I can't say too much right now, but
okay.
I'm trying to put together science and religion, not science.
Really fascinating, really fascinating. So going back the career history, we'll just touch on some of the highlights. We know there's a very long, successful trajectory in real estate investment banking. Going up to 2001, September 11th happens. We're all New Yorkers. We're all in New York. 3 cultural touchstones at that point, from my memory, that I can really trace back to letting people around the world know that New York was open for business at that time. The Saturday Night Live performance, when Saturday Night Live returned to the air.
Yep.
I go back to the concert at MSG, the concert for New York at Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
And then the launch with Robert De Niro and Jane Rosenthal of the Tribeca Film Festival, which you were part of. Can you just walk us through how that came about?
Long story short, I never let the facts get in the way of a good story, as they say. I've known Bob since the late 70s.
Okay.
And along the way, I met his producer partner, Jane Rosenthal. And it turns out she ended up becoming my ex-wife. So we've been divorced for about 10 years. But Jane and Bob were forces of nature. And after 9/11, because you mentioned sort of I had the same touchstones, but on the ground in Lower Manhattan, nothing else was happening. We were the only game in town. And so Jane came home one day, probably in October, November, and said, we want to do a film festival. Now, what had spurred that is right after 9/11, I think in early October, Jane and I went downtown to say, let's go support the restaurants. All these restaurants in Chinatown, Financial District, they're all going to go out. Little Italy, they're all going to go out of business because there are no customers. So we started something called Dinner Downtown, and we didn't have emails at the time. It was a fax campaign. You invite 10 friends and tell them to invite 10 friends. And I think we did 3 or 4 dinners, and each dinner was like 800 people, 1,000 people. Wow. And obviously, Bob De Niro's involved. People assume there'll be the celebrity, component of it.
Was that through his involvement in Tribeca Grill, or was it just totally separate?
This was, yes and no. I mean, the inspiration was us just going to Little Italy.
Okay.
And I think I think it's pre-Nobu. I didn't even think they had Nobu.
Okay. So before he was really immersed in the restaurant world.
Well, they'd always had the grill. The grill went around, and that was, Jane came in to sort of...
Drew Neoporin, right.
Drew, who, I've known, for more than 40 years. But it became apparent to Jane and myself when we went down to Little Italy, we have to get people back on the streets, or there will be no more, Lower Manhattan as we knew it. So Jane came home one day, I can't remember, it was October, and said, want to do a film festival? And I said, what decade are you talking about? She said, well, the only time that works is next April. So that'd be 2002. And I don't know anything about film festivals. I'm a, kind of a business guy who's, shifting careers and doing some more creative things. And given my business background, it sounded like one of the worst ideas I'd ever heard from a business perspective. I said, we have no money, we have no venues, we have no films, we have no, and you want to put this together in 4 months? This is like nuts. Having said that, we kind of jumped in, had a press conference with the governor and the who's who of the New York celebrity scene, and by sheer willpower, the thing got willed into existence. And it was supposed to be a one-shot deal.
Okay.
We're going to do it one time. And the problem is because we couldn't really raise any money because it was such a crazy idea. American Express found us and came to us. And I remember the call. They said, "Look, we're going to be your partner. We have to do this. Our employees are moving back into the neighborhood. We need to do this." And so I said, "Great. What's the?" She said, "The only thing, it has to be a 3-year deal."
Okay.
And so I'm sitting here saying, we have to do this 3 times.
So much for the one-off, right?
Yeah. But it really emerged from going downtown, and I can't even tell you how devastating that was. We were one of 2 parties in all of Little Italy. And all the waiters and the maitres are standing in the door, in the door stoops looking for customers. So that was the real inspiration.
Yeah, and a lasting cultural entity. I mean, part of the fabric of current day New York City.
Yeah, and I spent pretty much full time, for the first 15 years, so up until around 2015. That's kind of what I did. And then we took the festival to Doha, Rome. We did a big outdoor screening in Beijing. And so, the math is pretty straightforward. A 4-day festival in New York City with a 365-day calendar, you better fill up your calendar because the math doesn't.
That's right.
And it's actually no longer even called the Tribeca Film Festival. It's the Tribeca Festival. And so along the way, as part of my Tribeca experience, I got very involved, as you called it, disruptive innovation. And what I realized immediately was, wow, 5-string open G is really a disruptive innovation. And the history of all the open tunings, it was, go all the way back to the turn of the century, as a lot of the banjo players were moving into music down, Mississippi, the whole Southern blues movement. I ended up I met a Harvard Business School professor literally in 2000 by the name of Clayton Christensen, who's probably the most famous guy in the innovation space. He wrote The Innovator's Dilemma. So on a separate track, I was doing my businessy kind of stuff with Clay, and then all of a sudden we have Tribeca here in a war zone. And so through my lens, forget if anybody else thought that way, I'm using the principles of disruptive innovation to get this festival with no venue, with nothing, up on its feet. So that's where the disruptive innovation.
Really interesting, yeah. And is that what led to teaching at Columbia?
Yeah, that was sort of along the way. I became obsessed. I spent 45 minutes with Clay up at Harvard in an empty classroom and a whiteboard. He laid out his theory, and in 45 minutes, my entire life was turned upside down. Wow.
Incredible.
And by 2010, I decided to take Clay's body of work and turn it into an award show. So we launched, it was originally called the Tribeca Disruptive Innovation Awards. So it became very, very popular, to a large extent because of Clay's reputation. All right, so I'm going to make it really simple. This is after 30 years later.
Okay.
If you want to change the world, tune your guitar like a banjo.
Work for Keith.
It worked for Keith. Now, I do want to share one thing, because Lisa Robinson, who has interviewed, anybody and everybody, for my birthday, she said, I'm going to talk to Keith about, because she didn't even know about open G tuning. That,
Right. A lot of people don't.
A lot of people don't. So she came back in for my birthday. I don't even remember what year. She had been out with Keith for dinner, and he's, I don't know if you can see it, but so at dinner, and
oh, he drew it. He gave you a roadmap.
He did it for Lisa, who gave it to me.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And and it's like one of my favorite possessions. And
that is fantastic.
We honored Keith. I wasn't expecting him to come. It's like we've honored the Pope. I wasn't expecting the Pope to show up at our award show, which was very popular. But Jane Rose, his partner / manager, she came and accepted. We said, look, this is so dramatic, an insight, because 5 strings is less than 6 strings.
Right.
Okay. There's only 3 notes as opposed to 5 notes.
Yeah.
And it fit the checklist for disruptive innovation. Simpler, cheaper, more accessible, and good enough to get the job done.
limitation.
Yeah. And so the constraint is part of the creative process.
So you found that throughout your career, through all these different projects, all these different, whatever you're involved in on corporate boards or in the real estate investment business, you're applying that consistently throughout?
Yeah. And it morphed a little bit. Innovation is typically perceived as technology driven. It's, what the impact of the MP3 file, what happens when from mainframe computer,
always
the iPhone. But it was, if you could make guitar more accessible, because obviously in today's world, hip hop is obviously the dominant driver right now, at least culturally. And, how are we going to get the next generation? And so innovation, I'm always looking at it through this disruptive lens.
You touched on all these incredible experiences you had in your life. I think in a lot of ways, the formation and the growth of the film festival was definitely a version of giving back. Are there other types of things in your career that you feel proud of, that you love to point to as far as a giving back opportunity?
My life was changed. The more important event that happened, that even my epiphany on OpenG, was ending up with 2 young daughters. And so I became passionate. I always had this thing about children's books. And we did one, it was really just like a home, it was a little project that we did at home. And as it turned out, it morphed into a very big publishing arrangement where I think we've now done 14 or 15 books that I started when my daughters were 5 and 6 years old.
Okay.
They're now fully grown, but the books, still sell at Scholastic. And part of the giving back was I wanted to make this very accessible, because what a great way to have education through music. And it was kind of the give back was, don't tell people you're trying to teach them something.
Right.
Just let them get immersed. And it's called subversive education.
Beautiful.
And it was really inspiring. The head of, I can't remember who was Electronic Arts, whoever did John Madden football, gave a presentation. I was on the board of Sesame Workshop. So I've done part of my give back is I've been on, I don't know how many boards, including the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame board, which was quite an experience. But I wanted to make everything accessible for kids who wanted to learn. But we weren't going to tell them we were teaching them anything. We just wanted to find things that would grab their attention. So the intention was always to make this accessible, and hope that high schools, colleges could, use the music, play with it, do whatever they want. It's very much sort of an open source concept. So the give back was, here's this body of work that I didn't have any intention. There was no business plan. It just was the most organic process.
Going back to your earliest memory of when you recognized the guitar was going to be for you, when did you first notice that the guitar had an influence on you?
Well, my life, I kind of pattern, I can keep track of through my guitar collection. As I say, if you buy one guitar a year, but you've been doing it for 60 years, sometimes a new one appears, sometimes one is, where did that go?
Right.
But the first memory, well, obviously the inspiration, whether it was the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Herman's Hermits, the extras, I said, I don't know. And I played trumpet starting in the 4th grade, but by 6th grade, at Christmas time, I got an Emily plastic guitar.
Okay.
All the strings broke except for the 2, the high E and the B string. And I kind of was doing Satisfaction, whatever those simple riffs were. And then my father, we owned the local toy store, actually bought these very inexpensive, at the time made in Japan, when Japan wasn't at the top, electric guitars, and I got it for Christmas. And I don't even know if it had a brand. It was sort of a pretty generic electric guitar.
Yeah.
And and I brought it into school, and then everybody was so excited. I played it. I had very limited music skills, by the way, which is the beauty of, it's, you learn 3 chords, let's start a band.
That's all you need.
CD, right? It's like, I think I had the t-shirt, GCD, let's start a band. And so then my first real guitar was actually a used, my God, it must have been a 1962 or 63 Fender Jaguar.
Wow.
which did not have, the Jaguar and the Jazzmaster were sort of the top of the line.
Mm-hmm.
The Telecaster at the time probably cost new $125. And, the Strat was probably $150. At the time, $25, which in today's world is a cab ride 2 blocks. I was like, wow, we can't go from the top of the line. But I played the Fender Jaguar till, when did I play it till? I think until I got to college. But it wasn't a great rock guitar. It was a little bit, the tone from, pretty sure it was 3 pickups.
You still have it?
No, I traded it out. I swapped it out for ended up getting a Les Paul.
Okay. Good move.
Still have it. So it's now vintage that I bought when it was new, which is, the good news and the bad news. It leaves its mark on you. And then over time, I played throughout college in basement bands. We never performed for anyone. It was just jam sessions in the fraternity house basement. And they said, "Are they good?" They said, "We don't know if they're good. Boy, are they loud."
Loud is good. Loud is good.
And this was the time of Grand Funk Railroad.
Oh, yeah.
But it was loud, and we just had fun. And then when I got out of college, I said, you know what? I've really enjoyed this. It's my personal passion. I had no illusions of being a rock star. I would get completely, I want to just throw up if someone said, we'd like you to come play in public. I said, I don't play in public. I have stage fright like you wouldn't believe, and I had terrible timing. Doesn't matter what I do. I bought a couple new guitars. I bought, I actually got a 12-string. It's the Rickenbacker Roger McGuinn special edition.
Oh, nice.
Actually, Roger McGuinn and the Byrds were an honoree at the award show that we did.
Okay.
Roger came and he actually performed on my Rickenbacker.
Oh, wow.
So I have the telly. If you can see the telly on the back, I think it's John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora. And I think it says, "Nice axe, man."
Nice. Yeah,
Nice.
Seriously. Richie was probably eyeing that one.
We'd love for you to maybe show a guitar and tell us a little story about it.
So when I was playing with Alan, I said, if you find some, I'm going, and I love Rudy, and I bought a lot of guitars, but Alan, it doesn't go by looks, it goes by how it plays.
Okay.
And so Alan was always on the lookout for me for interesting guitars. And all of my guitars, I'm not interested in collecting for, it's just, how do they sound? How do they play?
You play them, right?
Just play them. And, so I have if I'm playing the Beatles, most of the time I'm using I think it's a 66 Epiphone Casino, I think it is.
Yep.
The same color. The lower guitar, you can't really see it. Let me see if I can, the wall.
Oh, you're surrounded by friends. That's very nice.
You got the Country Gentleman there. Is that that's George Harrison inspiration?
With the felt, the red felt.
Beautiful.
For the mute. This baby doesn't look like much.
Oh, it looks like much.
No, not only to the truly informed.
The trained
My
eye.
favorite part, you can tell where the guy was playing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's he had a favorite spot for sure.
Yeah, and so as they say, it looks like it fell off the back of a truck, except this is the one guitar everybody wants to play.
That looks like it's been loved.
It's been loved.
Do you have the year and the owner and like?
One of my passions is guitar by guitar, going back to the serial numbers.
Okay.
At least finding out where it came from.
Okay.
What year, what vintage it was. So this is definitely a 58. And a 58 maple. Most of them
Maple board.
rosewood. This is maple neck.
Yeah, 59 is right when they started to convert to the rosewood.
Yeah.
So that would have been a slab board, but that's pure maple. And original pickups and everything.
Everything's original. Yeah.
Frets, original frets.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's original frets.
Yeah.
I used to take it down. If you remember Weebies,
Oh yeah.
Richie,
of course. Yeah.
take it apart to see. But he said, "Yep, all original."
It was a big lead player. You could see it's pretty worn from the 7th fret forward. So this person was ripping up on that guitar.
Exactly.
And you said you did buy that from Rudy, or you didn't buy that from Rudy?
No, Alan, because
Alan found it for you.
he found, Alan probably found 4 or 5 guitars, and he was friendly with Rudy, and he became, for my birthday, I also have a double neck Hofner.
Oh wow.
Wow.
And it's a very strange, and it's bass and 6-string.
Is it like violin bass, like that style?
No.
So it's not hollow.
No, it's not hollow. It's a solid body.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, no, I haven't found it anywhere. I have about 6 guitars that I play pretty regularly.
And you have the 55 Tele behind you, so you could do all the Keith Richards open tuning, left to open G permanently.
Left open G.
And E string is gone. It's on.
The low E is gone. And actually, after we honored Keith, they actually did on his website. It's not there anymore. They had an old article that Keith is disruptive.
Oh, he is disruptive.
But that was really, so it's been an interesting trajectory. Playing guitar for me is my personal meditation. I usually play somewhere lately, probably close to half an hour a day lately. That's probably a lot of time. And I play the same 15 songs over and over again. Not really interested, and I'm just waiting for that one time that I nail it. And it's just, that's how I view it. And as I said, if, they're going to put one object in my coffin when I die, put the Stratocaster in.
Not a bad choice. Not a bad choice. Craig, thank you so much for taking the time. Such an interesting story. Where do people find you if they want to keep in touch, find out about what projects you're involved in?
Probably the best place is LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's, put in Craig Hatkoff, it should pop up, see Hatkoff. But that's probably the best way. And if someone reaches out and they don't hear back from me, reach out again. There's a lot of inbound traffic. But this has been great. Someday I'd love to come back on. And, this was just the tip of the iceberg. But
you're welcome anytime.
Every guitar has a story.
That's our show. Thanks for watching. And remember to like and subscribe to our channel. Check us out on all the socials at Chief Guitar Officer.
And we want you on the show. Go to chiefguitarofficer.com, look for the section called You're a CGO, send us your video, and be featured on a future episode. Just like this.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Jake Young. I am a guitar player and the host of the Man the Helm podcast based out of Nashville, Tennessee. This is my 2017 Gibson Les Paul Traditional, and I am a Chief Guitar Officer.